What's up, guys? I think a lot of YouTubers are or have this idea that this game, because it's a story game, it has to be no PvP, no multiplayer, and it needs to focus on only the story and balance around the story. And I think that's just a really bad idea. I think it kind of kills off how long this game can really last for and what it could potentially do and be. From all the time I've spent playing, testing, doing stuff with this game, I think it is perfectly viable and perfectly okay for them to introduce a PvP mode that allows for players to battle against each other. I think for this to work, there needs to be a couple of changes in how things are, as well as in how the battling will actually go. Of course, there will be some moves that need to be adjusted and a couple of things that will need to be changed. But I think in general, a couple of tweaks, and it's something not only we should have, but that would be really fun to mess with. So my main issue with this has always been the fact that even in the core game itself, the passives have always been super duper lacking, as well as the status effects being super duper lacking. So for PvP mode, what I would like to suggest is that we don't actually have any agent skills. So what I'm referring to would be the burst skills where, he does the thing, it buffs everybody, or he does the thing, it shoots everybody, I think that would need to be banned. Items would also need to be banned in there. And the only tricky one would be Digimon speeds. So if your Digimon is, let's be honest, will all be at stat cap, then I think at that point it kind of needs to be decided with a coin toss. Unfortunately, there's no good, simple way that can be decided. I guess if you want to argue the speed based off of what the actual speed is with agent buffs and things like that, then that could be something else that they explore. But for the time being, I'll go with the idea that we are doing it based off of a coin flip if they are the same speed. So what I've done is I've gone over all the passives in the game, as well as the status effects, and I've done some mini rebalances for them. There were one or two passives that were duplicates because for some reason multiple trees could have them. So what I've done is I've repurposed them entirely into new passives that I think are okay, not too strong, or something that we need. So first one we've rebalanced is Warrior's Wisdom. We boost attack for 30%, reduces SP cost for physical attacks by 10%. I think while it's not super strong, it at least makes it usable. Some Digimon have really high SP cost moves, and with this you would at least be able to get some extra damage off and get those moves back. So again, the idea here isn't to make everything broken or everything the same level of strength. It is more so just to make everything at least usable. So Song of Triumph, 40% chance of countering with an attack when being attacked with a magic attack. I've essentially taken the counter that we already have and made a version that is specifically for magic attacks, because I don't believe that the counter we currently have does affect those. So this way at least there will be a variant here. Again, not too strong, something usable. Rather than having the weird random chance it scales with missing health, it's just 40% static. So next we have Vitality Theft. So this one I've changed it to physical attack skills ignore 10% of the enemy defense and recovers HP equal to 10% of the physical attack skill damage dealt. So this way your physical skills will do a little bit more damage, ignore a bit of enemy defenses, and also heal you for a small portion of that. It's a decent way to, maintain your health without relying too much on the healer. Extra Strikes Tech, I've made this one a 40% chance to boost attack by 30%, and activating skills again when using a physical attack skill. So I've nerfed combo magic and also created a version for physical attacks where rather than having this weird scaling amount based on health, it's just 40% flat. Gives you a small attack increase, but also gives you a chance to double cast your physical spells. So that should make it usable, but not too strong. This is one of the ones that I've created. It's nothing fancy. It's just stout knowledge. So we boost our int based on your max HP up to 90%. So what I've done is I've taken the moves that boost your stats up to 90% based on missing health and just flipped it so that these all have more or less that 90% scaling. The next one we have is Fast Break. So we boost attack for the first 3 rounds. The first boost will be 90% for the first turn, then 60%, then 30%, and it will remain at 30%. I've changed this one so that it's not so useless once the 3 rounds are up. This way you're going to get the diminishing returns, but at least there will still be some sort of boost, meaning while it's not the best, it will also not be the worst. This is another one that I've created, strategic moves. So this one is specifically for tanks. It extends the duration of taunt by 2 turns and boosts accuracy and evasion by 30%. This way your taunts last for at least 3 turns, and you get a little bit of accuracy and a little bit of evasion on top of that. Again, nothing too strong, but usable at least. Stout defense. This one I've essentially just upped the amount to 90%, which would be the interaction with Great Embrace. This way it's not a bug, but it's also not removing that. So as long as your health is max, you'll get up to 90% defense. Steadfast Might. Boost attack when HP is 90% or lower. I haven't really changed these ones because I think that they're fine the way they are. So counter. 30% chance of countering with an attack when being attacked by a physical attack. So more or less the same as before. Instead, I've just given it a static 30% rather than a chance scaling with missing health. Healing Wisdom. So this one boosts defense and boosts SPI by 10%. Reduces SP cost for recovery skills by 10%. So this one will make you a little bit tankier, keep you a little bit more safe, a little bit more in the fight, and also reduces recovery skill cost by 10%. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but at least it makes a small change that adds a little bit more value on top of that. Next we have SP Supplement, so also recovers 20% of your target's max SP and boosts int by 20% for 1 turn when using skills to recover an ally's HP. So essentially if you're healing your ally with this, it just gives them a little bit of an int boost, just a tiny bit more damage, just add a little bit more value onto this. Again, not great, but a little bit better. Next we have Follow Up. So I believe this one was the one that I made quite a bit stronger. So what Follow Up does now is it would boost your defense and your SPI by 30%. You'll always go last, but if you get attacked, you get a 20% attack boost for that 1 turn. Meaning if they attack you, when you get your turn to attack, you'll have a little bit more damage on top of that attack, but it'll also make you a little bit tankier to allow you to, not be punished so hard for going last by giving you some more resistances. Next we have Prayer for Aid. So this one moderately recovers HP of all allies at the start of each round, slightly recovers SP for our allies at the start of each round, and all allies take 20% reduced physical damage. So this one is more for your healers who want to be more of a passive background healer. This way it doesn't do too much because, moderate HP recovery, that one will have to be tested with status effects that prevent healing and things like that to see how much is too much. It might be okay to drop the moderately back to slightly, but the extra minus 20% physical damage is just a nice way to keep your Digimon hanging in there and preventing them from from falling over. If you like, you can also reduce that 20% down to 10%. I've just left it at 20 for the time being, but I think either is fine. I think 10 may be the better choice, but I've left it at 20 for the time being. Because if you're competing with all these other abilities, then this one still, even with the 20%, probably isn't too crazy. Next we have Meditation. Boosts int from round 4 onwards. Boosts int up to 90%. And so it would work the same way in reverse. You'd get turn 4, 30%. Turn 5, 60%. Turn 6, 90%. Then next we have First Aid. I didn't really want to touch this one because I think it's fine as it is. Steadfast Heart, I haven't really changed that one either. I think it's fine the way it works. Rally Blessing. So, revives with 50% HP when KO'd once per battle. And I've also added when revived, boosts all stats by 20% for 2 turns. It's not too much I want to do with this one, but for the 2 turns after you've revived, you'll be a little bit stronger all across the board to hopefully prevent you from falling over again so soon. First in line. This means that you're going first, and also gives you an extra 20% evasion, just to help you dodge, stop you from falling over, as this one doesn't really have any serious advantage aside from you going first. Great Embrace. So this one is just going to be nerfed directly, so I'm reducing it to overheals up to 30% of the target's max HP when using recovery skills. I think this ability was completely overtuned. Its interactions with a lot of other things in the game was completely horrible, and it's kind of watered down the difficulty of content. I don't think the game has been all that difficult in general, and this has just made it too easy, especially with the bugged interactions that it has with so many moves and abilities. So with this, Hopefully it will remedy that issue as well as stop it from overrunning the scene. For Cheer, nothing has changed, but for Prankster, I have made quite a few changes. So Prankster now boosts the probability rate of skill debuffs by 10%, including insta-death. Enemies already affected by status effects will also take 30% increased damage from all sources. So now, if you are able to debuff your enemy with something like poison or paralyze, then they will take extra damage on top of the regular damage they'd already take, which makes it a little bit more worth, a little bit more value. Although, sadly, a lot of these don't really apply to a lot of bosses. I think in a PvP setting, also with the changes we've made to those status effects, they will have a little bit more value there. Next we have Stout Strength. It's simply just been boosting up to 90%, so it would be what it is with Great Embrace, if your health is max. The next one, Hustle Cry, hasn't been changed at all. Booing now extends the duration of Taunt, Elemental Resistance down, and debuff effects applied by the user skills by 2 turns. I think Taunt skills just didn't really work in this game. It lasts for 1 turn, bosses attack 3 times. After the first attack, it just kind of wears off and it's kind of worthless. So with this, it would now last longer, as well as the elemental resistance down lasting longer to add more value onto them. So your primers can be a little bit more flexible and you can work more with combining resistance shreds essentially. Weak Point Blitz boosts damage dealt by the user when hitting an enemy with a weak point by 50%. Type Advantage and Super Effective is already really strong in this game when you're able to get multiple, so adding an extra 50% on top of that would just be really strong. It will still be a situational ability, but I think this just adds a little bit more value on top of it when being used. Strategic Order, this one now boosts your crit rate by 20%, but also boosts your crit damage by 50%, so the damage might not be too big, but it is a decent chunk of increase in damage, and the crit chance here is not too big, but enough to notice a difference. So now crit builds can hopefully be a bit more viable. More on that later. Next we have Fortifying Charge. I have just buffed this number up for the boost to all stats when healed to 10% from 5%, just making it a little bit more competitive. Slow Start boosts attack from round 4 onwards up to 90%. Same thing as before. Planning Ahead has not changed. Magical Wisdom boosts int by 30%, reduces SP cost for magic attack skills by 10%. So same thing as the reverse version of this, just to make it a bit more competitive so it's not literally unusable. At least in this way, it becomes a little bit more usable. Next we have Secret Sage Art. So magic attack skills ignore 10% SPI and recovers HP equal to 10% of magic attack skill damage dealt. So this is just the reverse of the physical version. It essentially just opens up another window for you to heal a little bit and do a little bit more damage by ignoring resistance rather than just upping stats. Steadfast Emotion boosts int when HP is 90% or lower up to 90%. Nothing has changed with those. As I said, I've basically left the steadfasts alone. Magic Theft. So we now boost attack and int by 20% and recovers SP equal to 5% of skill damage dealt. This way you can now have a way to reliably regain your SP while also doing a decent chunk of damage with a 20% boost on top. It's not the biggest boost, but makes it more competitive, so it makes it at least usable. Next we have Soothing Song. So we moderately recover SP of all allies at the start of each round, slightly recovers HP of all allies at the start of each round, and all allies take 20% reduced magical damage. Again, just another thing tacked on to give it a little bit more value, but you probably won't see as much value on this one as you do for the physical attacks because there are not that many magic attackers in the game. Now, moving on to what I was referring to in terms of crit, we have Haymaker. So the new Haymaker will boost your crit rate by 10%, but it'll boost your crit damage by 100%. Now, I've said this before, but I feel like crit damage in this game doesn't really do all that much damage. You don't really get much out of it. It doesn't really offer you too much. So I think with this, you get a large amount of damage when you're able to crit, so you're no longer punished for building for crit, and crit does now have a decent amount of value. I can see that we do actually have another follow-up that I didn't change, so if I was to change this now, it would probably be something that gives you reduced crit damage, maybe take minus 20% crit damage, something more defensive along those lines. Next we have Intense Focus, same thing as before, just boost int for 3 turns, 90, 60, 30. We have Stout Spirit, same thing as before, except that it's just up to 90% this time. And of course, last but not least, Combo Magic. So now it is a 40% chance static to get 30% int increase and activate your magic skills a second time. So I think with these passive changes, as well as the suggested changes for how we're going to do PvP, it would make things a little bit more easier to balance and a little bit and it would hopefully make things not so one-sided when it comes to passives, because currently in the way the game exists, you either use stout strength or combo magic, great embrace. Everything else just kind of doesn't matter. So at least with this, you will have a lot more options in how you build your team, as well as what you'd like to run. Honestly, I think if they were to take these passive changes and just apply them into the actual game, then would also probably do the same thing, because most of the passives are pretty much dog water. So I think, though, while I'm here, if we just change this one and we leave it at that, I think I'm satisfied with that. Let's give it a cool name too. There we go. So now we have Unbreaking. Reduces crit damage taken by 20%, and I'm happy with this one as is. Next, we will just move on to the status effects. So I've said this before, they are kind of not all that interesting because they basically do the same thing. So for Poison and Deadly Poison, I haven't changed anything. Poison still does 6% max health damage per tick every time you have your turn. Deadly Poison will be 12% max health damage every time you have your turn. But with Confusion, what I've done is when you're confused, you'll now lose 10% accuracy. So even if you do manage to attack, you'll have 10% accuracy less on your skills. Of course, this probably won't affect skills that always hit, but for everything else, it's at least a factor to take into account for these status effects. Now, for Chaos, we'll have once you are procced with Chaos, you'll lose 20% SPI, which means you are open to take 20% more damage from one magic attack. As we know, this status effect goes away once you've been attacked, so at least it gives a little bit of value before it kind of gets wiped off you. Next, we have Paralysis. When your Digimon is paralyzed, they will lose 10% speed, meaning that even if you initially had the same speed as someone else, if you've been paralyzed, you will now be going second, even just to roll to see if you're going to actually make the move, or if paralysis is preventing you from doing so. On the flip side, we have Immobilization. Rather than losing 20% SPI, you'll be losing 20% defense. So for Sleep, this one will debuff your defense and your SPI by 5%. Nothing too big, but I think that it's fine this way because it has both of your defenses, allowing for either type of Digimon to do more damage. And with Deep Slumber, it would essentially just be the same thing, but a slightly bigger increase to the debuff on your defense and SPI at 10%. Crystallization, I've just added that you take 10% increased damage whenever you're crystallized from all sources, meaning that essentially you don't want to be crystallized. So I think with these kind of changes, it does make the game a little bit more interesting. I would love to see these in the actual base game, maybe story, but for a PvP system, I think these would also be quite viable, and I think that they, while needing a little bit of balancing, of course I can't test these to tell you how good they are, I still think it is worthwhile to have these changes at least implemented into the main game or a PvP system that gets added. Alright, and with that we can bring the video to a close. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you had any more ideas or changes you'd like to make, be sure to leave in the comment section below. I'd love to iron these out because I do plan to present these changes to someone at Bandai. Hopefully we can get a motion going, hopefully we can get something flowing, maybe get PvP in the game, I don't know, or at least maybe you rebalance some of these skills or the passive skills to make things a little bit more interesting. I think a lot of YouTubers have this, as I said, idea that PvP doesn't have a place in this game, and I think that's completely and utterly wrong. I think adding PvP would allow players something to do in the meantime waiting for DLC, because outside of that there's literally nothing else to do in the game. So I think adding PvP would be a fun way to just let players go crazy with their Digimon and allow for more team building variation and just more content and more fun for everyone. Anyway, if you guys really want to support the channel, please do check out the channel memberships. They are like $2 a month. There's a lot of benefits, a lot of fun stuff from there. With that being said, I would just like to give a shout out to all the current members of the channel. So shout outs to Goovy, Isaac Walker, Suspicious Toast, Charisma, Ycrad90, and Christian L. You guys are the goats. Thank you for supporting me and supporting the channel. I am working on putting together or making a Spotify so you guys can stream the songs that I use for the videos. I know a few people have asked and a few people have requested it. If there is anything that you'd like to see in terms of content, please do just leave it in the comment section. I do check them out, and I do reply to all my comments. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget, the night belongs to you. Bye.